Jai Hind everyone. I'm Navjyoti Sharma once again in front of you to take one of the complex topic of the subject Fundamentals of Electrical Engineering, which is having a code of BEE 101 under the AKTU first year syllabus. The complex topic which we are going to discuss is from the Unit 4 Electrical Machines, in which we used to study the torque slip characteristics of three-phase induction motor, right? So considering that in the previous lectures we have seen the construction, the working principle, what do we mean by this rotating magnetic field, how it is being generated in a three-phase induction motor, and how it helps to have the starting of this three-phase induction motor. Moving forward, we have also seen what is the slip in an induction motor, the difference between the synchronous speed and the rotor speed of the induction motor. When it is expressed as a fraction of synchronous speed, it is being called as a slip. Now, what is its effects on its rotor parameters? Likewise, rotor induced EMF, rotor currents, power factor. This is all what we have seen in the previous lectures. Coming to the very important topic, that is torque slip characteristics, which actually tells us how this the working of the induction motor, or how its applications would be decided, and where the operating slip of the induction motor should be there, right? Coming to the complex topic of this. So first we'll see what is the torque equation, right? How it can be given. So the torque equation, it is having a derivation, but just in one glance, if it all I say. So the torque equation of a three-phase induction motor, that depends upon three things. One is the rotor current under running condition, that means I2R, that is the representation what we have gone for. Second is the power factor of the rotor circuit, that is cos phi 2R, and the third one, that is the flux which links with the rotor, right? So that means the torque that is ultimately proportional to the flux. It's proportional to flux. It is I2R and cos phi 2R, right? That means both of these are in running conditions. Now, once again, this flux is actually proportional. This has been produced because of the supply voltage V1, right? The three-phase AC supply what we are giving to the stator of the induction motor. And this V1 is definitely proportional to the induced EMF in the stator, right? Stator windings, and is definitely proportional to E2. That is the induced EMF at standstill condition at rotor condition, right? Towards the rotor side, right? So that must be proportional to E2. So considering flux proportional to E2, this is I2 and cos phi 2 at running conditions. Moving on with this, if at all I just substitutes the value of E2 and E2R and I2R and cos phi 2R, here once again the torque is proportional to this is E2. Then once again I2R, that is the rotor current at running condition, that will be given by S times of E2 divided by Z2R. S times slip times the rotor induced EMF in standstill condition by Z2R, that is the rotor impedance at running condition. That will once again be given by under root of R2 square plus SX2 whole square, where what is R2? R2 is the rotor resistance and X2 is the rotor reactance. At running condition, it will be slip times X2. So that becomes, just substituting it over here. Similarly, this is cos phi 2R. That means the power factor of the rotor circuit at running condition. That will be once again be given by R2 by Z2R. R2 rotor resistance, that doesn't changes with the running condition because rotor is the resistance is frequency independent quantity, right? Otherwise, if you see the rotor reactance, that is also going to change, the rotor current also going to get changed, induced EMF also getting changed, and the rotor power factor is also changing, right, because of that. But the rotor resistance, that value is remaining same even if we are changing the frequency of the induced EMFs are getting changed towards the rotor side in running condition. So that becomes R2 upon Z2R. Once again, substituting Z2R as once again under root of R2 square plus SX2 whole square. So finally, we'll be getting an expression that torque is proportional to S times of E2 square R2 by R2 square plus S times of E2 square Newton meter. Once again, to remove this proportionality, we'll be introducing a constant that will be given by 3 upon 2 pi ns. This is K, what we used to call it as 3. K, that is given by 3 upon 2 pi ns, where ns is the synchronous speed in RPS, revolutions per second, right? 3, that is for 3-phase. If at all I say this is the equation for a single phase, and when we apply it for a 3-phase induction motor, the same equations become K times, where K is given by 3 upon 2 pi ns, where ns, this is small ns, which represents the synchronous speed in RPS, right? So this gives me the expression for the torque in a 3-phase induction motor. Now, what will be the torque equation for running condition? This is what we have just achieved, right? What we are saying it as running condition, it will be given by some K times, where we have seen K is given by 3 upon 2 pi ns, S times of E2 square R2 by R2 square plus Sx2 whole square. So this is the complete expression for the torque. But when we say, is this going to remain the same at starting condition, right? If the motor is just starting, what is going to be its expression? So as we know, at starting, the slip of the induction motor, that is going to be 1n. Slip is given by ns minus nr upon ns. And at the very starting, nr, the rotor speed, that is going to be 0. So it is ns upon ns, that is 1. So at starting, slip is 1. That's why the starting torque expression would be given by just substituting S is equals to 1 in these conditions. So I'll be having it as K times E2 square R2 by R2 square plus X2 whole square. If we see this particular expression, it can be very nicely seen that the starting torque is very much dependent upon the rotor resistance, right? The starting torque is directly proportional to the rotor resistance. So as we increase the rotor resistance by many means, right, we'll be seeing that. In fact, that is possible in case of slip ring induction motor, right? As we are having two types of induction motor, one is squirrel cage, another one is slip ring or phase wound. So in case of squirrel cage, the addition of the rotor resistance, that is not possible. We have seen that while going for the construction. But in case of the slip ring induction motor, which is also being called as phase wound induction motor, in that we can be adding rotor resistance, and by adding rotor resistance, if at all we see, the starting torque can be increased. So these kinds of motors are generally being used where we require a higher starting torque, generally the lifting jobs, the elevating jobs, right? Okay, now so this is the expression for the starting torque. We'll once again be getting back to this. Now, if that is so, that means that the torque is actually not constant for a motor, right? It is going to change with the change in the load. As the load is going to get changed, the slip is going to get changed. And when the slip is going to get changed, then obviously the running torque equation, or the running torque is going to get changed, right? So what is that condition at which we can be having the maximum torque? Right? What will be that condition? So that condition for the maximum torque can be derived. So as we know, we have just seen that the torque is a function of slip. So according to the change in the slip, which is actually changing because of the change in the load, so it can be seen, if we want to have the condition for the maximum torque, obviously, according to the law of maxima, we need to differentiate the expression for the torque with respect to slip and equate it to 0. So we have already seen the expression for the torque. The torque is given by K times S E2 square R2 by R2 square plus Sx2 whole square. Just differentiating it and equating it to 0, the expression what we'll be getting is, the condition what we'll be getting is that Sm must be equals to R2 by X2. That means the maximum torque will be attained at the slip when it is equals to the ratio of rotor resistance to the rotor reactance at standstill condition. So at this instant, the maximum torque of the three-phase induction motor would be occurring. Okay, fine. If that is so, we can also have the expression for the maximum torque, right? So the expression for the maximum torque, what will be the maximum torque at that instant when this Sm is equals to R2 by X2? So just by substituting S as R2 by X2 in the original equation of the torque, we can be having the expression for maximum torque. If we just substitute, this is K times S into E2 square upon R2, R2 square plus S times of X2 whole square. So just substituting S as Sm, which is given by the ratio of R2 by X2, numerator and denominator both, the expression what we'll be getting is K times E2 square by 2X2 Newton meter. Just once again, just see this equation very nicely. If I see this equation very minutely, it is very clear that in this expression, there is no term which is being called as R2. That means that the maximum torque is independent of rotor resistance. The maximum torque is independent of rotor resistance, right? Whether we increase it or decreases, the maximum torque that can be produced by an induction motor is independent of this, right? There are different factors. The rotor reactance decides it. The induced EMF in the standstill condition, that decides it. The NS of that means synchronous speed of the induction motor, that decides it. But the rotor resistance doesn't decide the maximum torque produced by the induction motor. Now coming to the most important characteristics what we are going to in fact discuss, that is torque slip characteristics. If we just plot the characteristics of a three-phase induction motor, if you see over here, we are having the torque on the y-axis and slip on the x-axis, right? So here, this is S is equals to 0. This is Sm. Sm, the slip at maximum torque, which is actually given by the ratio of rotor resistance by rotor reactance. Here, the slip is 0. Here, the slip, this is the slip at maximum torque. It is referring to the maximum torque. This is the starting torque, where the slip is equals to 1. So, what should be the speed here? This is the starting. So, n is equals to 0. This is some n at which we are getting the maximum torque. And what is this? This is n is equals to, where would be slip 0, which is practical if at all see. This is not the possible condition for an induction motor. As we know, the induction motor is actually running because of the relative speed of the synchronous speed and the rotor speed. If these two speeds become 0, the relative speed becomes 0, the synchronous speed is becoming equal to nr, the speed of the rotor. There is no relative speed between the two. If there is no relative speed between the two, there is no flux cut experienced by the rotor conductors. If there is no flux cut experienced by the rotor conductors, there will not be any EMF induced. No EMF induced, there will not be any current. If there is no current, there will not be any torque produced by the rotor conductors. So the motor will come to rest, right? But this doesn't happen, right? This is a practically impracticable condition for a three-phase induction motor. But considering the range to be from 0 to 1 for slip, in which we are having Sm, which is given by R2 by X2. Similarly, we are having 3 torques. One is the starting torque. That is the torque at the very starting, when the motor is starting, right? It is not 0. As we have just seen, it is dependent upon rotor resistance. Then this is the operating torque or the load torque, right? And this is Tm. Now, if at all, I classify this complete into 2 regions, right? So I'm having 2 regions in it. This region is being called as low slip region, and this region is being called as high slip region. That means the region towards 0 and SM, I'm calling that as low slip region, and from SM towards S is equals to 1, I'm calling it as high slip region. Now, if at all you see the characteristics, in case of low slip region, the torque is directly proportional to the slip, right? As we just see, the torque is proportional to S times E2 square R2 divided by R2 square plus SX2 whole square. As E2 is also constant, right? The induced EMF in the rotor at standstill condition, that is also constant. So I may even remove this. So this is proportional to S times of R2 upon R2 square plus SX2 whole square. If that is so, now once again, towards the lower slip region side, the slip is very much closer towards 0, right? So it is very much lesser. The slip is comparatively very much lesser. If that is so, it is almost equating towards 0, right? If that is so, in this particular equation, it can be just seen, we are just remaining with, this is just torque which is directly proportional to slip. Why? Because in this particular case, if S is getting closer to 0, then this Sx square, this S is smaller, this Sx square whole square, this is going to become very much negligible compared to this R2, right? So if we neglect this, I'll be having only just torque proportional to SR2 upon R2 square, but the rotor resistance itself is a constant, right? So the torque is directly proportional to S in case of towards the lower slip region. But when it comes to higher slip region, the same expression stands. The same expression stands. The same expression is, the torque is once again proportional to S times E2 square. Torque is once again proportional to S times E2 square, which is a constant, upon R2 divided by R2 square plus SX2 whole square. This time, it's a higher slip region, right? Towards the higher slip region, the S is moving towards 1, right? It is having a higher value. This time, I can't say that SX2 square is negligible. This is a nice value, right? In fact, this R2, the rotor resistance is comparatively negligible compared to this SX2 whole square, right? So if at all I neglect this, I'll be having torque proportional to S times R2 itself is a constant, right? R2 upon SX2 whole square, or I must say S square SX2 square. If that is so, once again, this is a constant, right? This is S, 1S. So I get that torque is inversely proportional to S in the high slip region. So the graph what we are getting, if at all I plot, so for the lower slip region, it is directly proportional. The torque is directly proportional to slip. So as the slip is increasing, you can be seen, I'm having a linear graph up to SM, maximum torque. Then after this, from SM towards 1, which we call it as higher slip region, it is inversely proportional. With this graph, we have seen why it is directly proportional, why it is inversely proportional. Once again, this low slip region, this is also being called as stable region. This is being called as stable region or the operating region, right? Whereas this high slip region, it is also being called as unstable. That's why if you just see the operating slip, or I must say the operating torque or the load torque of the induction motor is towards, this is the operating torque or the load torque. This is towards the low slip region side. That means it is towards the stable region side. Why this is so? That this low slip region is stable, but this high slip region is unstable. As you just see, right? If at all I go with the high slip region side, I can be seeing that towards this side that the torque is inversely proportional to slip. Now, supposingly, if the load is being increased, right? towards the unstable region or towards the high slip region, the motor is operating in this region, and suddenly if the load is increased, what is going to happen? If the load is going to get increased, obviously the speed of the motor, that is going to get decreased. NR is going to get decreased. If NR is going to get decreased, what is going to happen with the slip? The slip is also going to get increased, right? With the increase in the slip, what is going to happen with the torque? The torque is decreasing according to the nature. But what should actually happen? If the load is increasing, the motor should produce even more torque to cope up with the new load demand, right? So what will happen? The torque which is required by the increased load, that has not been produced by the motor, but it is decreasing. If that is so, the motor will feel even more loaded, right? It will feel more loaded. If that is so, the speed will further decrease. The slip of the motor will further increase. If that is so, once again the nature, right? As the slip is increasing, the torque will decrease in the unstable region or in the high slip region. So the torque will further decrease. Once the torque decreases once again, the desired increase in the load and the desired increase in the torque which the motor needs to produce, it is not producing. So the motor will feel even more loaded. So this cumulative process will once again keep on increasing. The load increases, the slip increases, and the torque further decreases. So ultimately, the motor comes to rest in this region, right? So that's why this region is being called as unstable region. So the operating point or the load torque of an induction motor would be in the lower slip side. If we just oppositely see in the stable region, what is going to happen? If you increase the load, the slip will also increase. If you increase the load, obviously the speed of the motor will decrease and the slip will increase. When the slip is increasing, but in this nature, when the slip is increasing, the torque is also increasing. So the motor will produce the desired torque as required by the new load demand of the motor, right? So that much torque will be produced according to the new load demand, which is actually required by the motor. That's why this region is being called as the stable region, whereas this region is being called as the unstable region which is under the high slip region. So this gives the complete torque slip characteristics of an induction motor. That means two regions in a torque slip characteristics. One is low slip region, which is directly proportional to the torque is directly proportional to the slip, whereas the high slip region where the torque is inversely proportional to the slip. Reasons being given. With that, the low slip region is also being called as the stable region, whereas the high slip region is also being called as unstable region. Now, what is the effect of the variation of rotor resistance on this torque slip characteristics? Right? We have seen the torque slip characteristics. We can once again be plotting it. Right? If that is so, if at all I just see, this is the torque, this is slip. If supposingly this is the maximum torque produced by the motor, right? This is the starting torque, tau ST1. This is the starting torque in the initial state when the rotor resistance is just R2. Say the rotor resistance is R2, right? That means there is no change in the rotor resistance. It is the inbuilt rotor resistance, right? So this is the maximum torque. Obviously, I know what is this point. This is SM1. What is SM1? The slip corresponding to the maximum torque when the rotor resistance is just R2, the first state what we are considering. That's why I'm using the suffix SM1, which is given by rotor resistance by rotor reactance, R2 by X2. This is supposed to be S is equals to 0 and this is supposed to be S is equals to 1. Here N is equals to 0, where N is equals to NR. Now, this is the regular torque slip characteristics, what we are studying for certain rotor resistance R2. Now, if we increase the rotor resistance, which is once again, we have just seen that this is possible in case of slip ring induction motor, right? If the rotor resistance is being increased by adding certain extra rotor resistance with the help of slip rings, then say the increased rotor resistance is now R2 dash. Right? In this case, what is going to happen? The characteristics is going to remain same. We are going to have the low slip region, the high slip region, the stable, unstable region. The nature is going to get remain. But what about the starting torque, the maximum torque? If we just see, we have just seen the equation for the starting torque. It is independent of rotor resistance. It is K times R2 square into E2 divided by R2 square plus SX2. R2 plus X2 square. There is no term which is being called as slip and R2, right? It was only having E2 and X2 square. So it is in the starting torque that is in fact dependent upon rotor resistance, but the maximum torque that is independent of the rotor resistance. That's why there will not be any effect on the maximum torque. But what will happen to the starting torque? That is directly proportional to the rotor resistance. The starting torque was given by K times S. Sorry, S is equals to 1. K times E2 square R2 divided by R2 square plus X2 square. Here the starting torque is directly proportional to R2. So as we increase the rotor resistance from R2 to R2 dash, the starting torque is also going to get increased. But what about the maximum torque? The maximum torque is going to remain same. Its expression is K times E2 square upon twice of X2 square. So its value is going to remain same, right? If that is so, the characteristics will move. How? It will move like this. Right? Where, once again, what is this? This is tau ST2, the new starting torque, which is the increased value. Earlier, we used to have this as the starting torque. Now, this is an increased value. What about the maximum torque? The magnitude is remaining same, but the slip at which we were getting the maximum torque that has been increased. Now the maximum torque would be occurring at some R2 dash by X2. As the R2 has increased, so the slip at which the maximum torque was occurring, that will also increase. Similarly, I further increase the rotor resistance to R2 double dash. What is going to happen in that case? In that case, once again, I'll be having the same maximum torque but an increased starting torque, right? This time the starting torque will further increase. Tau ST3. But the maximum torque magnitude is remaining same. Once again, the slip at which this maximum torque is occurring, say SM3 given by R2 double dash by X2, that will be here. Right? Similarly, I keep on increasing the rotor resistance. So what should be, is there any condition to have the maximum torque at the starting itself? Can it go like this? Like this? That means I'm getting the maximum torque at the starting. What should be that condition? If we just see from here, the slip is equals to 1. And also I know the condition, the slip must be equals to whatever is the rotor resistance at that time, say R3 double dash upon X2. That must be equals to, the ratio has to be equals to 1. That means R2 triple dash upon X2 must be equals to 1. Which shows me that when the rotor reactance is getting equal to the rotor resistance, at that instant, right, we'll be getting the maximum torque at the starting. Fine. So this is the effect of rotor resistance on the torque slip characteristics. Have we seen as we keep on increasing the rotor resistance, the starting torque will keep on increasing. But the maximum torque magnitude is going to remain same. But the slips at which these maximum torque are occurring, that will also increase. Lastly, coming to the applications of three-phase induction motor, that depends basically upon whether we are going for a slip ring induction motor or a squirrel cage. If it is a squirrel cage induction motor, obviously it will be used for medium starting torque or low starting torque. Likewise, industrial fans, pumps, compressors, right? When it comes to the applications where we require higher starting torque, likewise the cranes, the hoist, elevators, electric tractions, so there we need to apply the slip ring induction motor or phase wound induction motor. Thank you all for listening me so patiently. We'll be once again be taking the another topic from the same unit. Thank you.